Hello everyone, welcome to Literature Warriors. You can learn a lot of things about literature. You can learn poems, short stories, novels from this channel. So if you have not subscribed the channel Literature Warriors, you can subscribe it to watch more videos on O-level and A-level English literature. Well, so today I'm going to analyze the Sonnet 73 written by William Shakespeare, which is appeared in the A-level English literature syllabus. Well, let's move to the poem, the Sonnet 73. All right. So you may know by now that Shakespearean sonnets are different. They don't have exaggerations like Petrarchan sonnets. So I think as you have gone through several Shakespearean sonnets, you have an idea about Shakespearean sonnets. And you may have, there is another sonnet which is 141, sonnet 141 in your syllabus, and that is also written by William Shakespeare. So this is sonnet 73 that we have to study. So the sonnets from 71 to 75 are typically grouped, and we are called that these are fair youth poems. These poems, we call them as fair youth poems. And we believe that in these poems, in these sonnets from 71 to 74, Shakespeare is addressing to a young man. So there are a lot of stories about Shakespeare, and it is said that Shakespeare had a great passion towards, a spiritual passion towards a young man. So you know a sonnet is 14 lines poem, and they are deviated as this is a Shakespearean poet. It is deviated from the Petrarchan mode of sonnets, which contains lot of exaggerations. Well, so this 14 lines poem is a sonnet, and if we talk about William Shakespeare a little, if you do literature, you may have heard of William Shakespeare a lot. So he is an English poet, dramatist, and also an actor. And his name is written in the legends of English literature. Well, let's move to the poem now. The sonnet 73 is actually known as the sonnets to the fair youth. And the fair youth poems are expressions of spiritual love towards a young man. So as I have told, these poems are the poems which contains the desire, the expressions, the advices for a young man. And as the second point you can see, I have mentioned here, Sonnet 73 contains many of the themes common throughout the entire body of sonnets, including the ravages of time on one's physical well-being and the mental anguish associated with moving further from youth and closer to death. So this actually contains a lot of themes which are universal, and all these themes are drawn throughout the poem. And especially, it talks about the physical well being and the mental anguish associated with youth and death. So, when we go through the sonnet, you can understand how he used comparisons from nature to compare the youth and death with regard to the physical well being. Well, as the third point I have mentioned here, the poet prepares his young friend not for approaching literal death of his body, but the metaphorical death of his youth and passion. Yeah, Shakespeare is taking a great effort to make his young friend understand the difference between the youth and death or the youth and the old age, and for that he uses number of natural elements. Well, and then we can see in the last point I have mentioned here, the poet's deep insecurities swell irrepressibly as he concludes that the young man is now focused only on the signs of his aging, as the poet surely is himself. So, Shakespeare is in the old age now. So, he tells to the young man that you will be also like me one day. So you have now aging, the signs of aging. Okay, so let's analyze the poem and learn more about the sonnet 73. And sonnets, especially Shakespearean sonnets, contain the archaic language, which is somewhat difficult for you to understand. So, when I'm analyzing this poem, I will be explaining the word by word, especially focusing on your attention over the archaic terms used by Shakespeare, and will explain the surface meaning of the poem and the in-depth meaning of it. Well, let's move to the first part of the poem. Actually, the first part of the poem contains of perceives like perceives the young man to see like the poet, that means Shakespeare. He asks the young man to look at me and get the idea. So that is simply what he wants to tell. Well, let's see. The first part of the poem, I have here mentioned the 8 lines from the sonnet. Usually the sonnets are written like a free verse. All the lines are together and it is not divided into quatrains or stanzas. Well, so however, I have taken the first 8 lines here and let's go through that first. Well, now at first, I will be reminding you when you are reading a poem to understand it well, you have to read the poem at a stretch until you meet a comma or a full stop. Then you can understand. Even the first line can be read at a stretch until you meet a comma or a full stop. Then you can understand it. So let me tell you. That time of the year thou mayest in me behold when yellow leaves, O none, O few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs, where, late the sweet birds sang, In me thou seest the twilight of such a day as after the sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away death's second self, that seals up all in rest. Well, now let's see the word by word analysis or the meaning of this poem. Yeah, the meaning of the surface meaning of the poem. Then let's analyze it a bit more. Well, now you can see it says the first line tells that the time of the year thou mayest behold when yellow leaves. Now, what does it signify? What does it tell? Let's see. Now, it says, when you look at me, you must see that time of the year. That time of the year when yellow leaves or no leaves hang on the branches that shiver in the cold, shake in the cold. So it tells, when you look at me, now you can look at me and imagine that time of the year. So that time of the year eventually signifies the old age. Old age. And then, thou mayest in me behold. That means when you hold a second on me, right? You will see that time of the year when there are yellow leaves, or sometimes there are no leaves on the trees, and the tree branches are shivering with cold, shivering in the cold. So this is actually not the winter season, but it's the autumn, where we always signify the autumn to the old age and winter to the death. So this is very close to winter. This season is very close to winter, right? Very close to winter. But still, in some trees there are few leaves. In other trees there are yellow leaves, and in some there are no leaves hanging. So mayest means thou mayest. Thou mayest. Yeah, I will explain it. Okay, so here the word thou, thou means you, mayest means must, behold, look at me. When you look at me, you will remember the time of the year where yellow leaves or no leaves are hanging. Upon those boughs means the branches shaking with coldness. Cold. It's very cold. Right. Well, then the next line tells, bare ruined choirs where late their sweet birds sang. So that gives the idea that in me, when you look at me, in me, you see the deserted, ruined. Ruined means the deserted, the abandoned, nobody is there. The deserted church choirs, bare, there's nobody there. The church choirs, now the church choirs are closed because those churches are not in use anymore. So when you look at me, you will remember those abandoned, the unused churches, the deserted ruined churches, and the choirs. You will hear the choirs there. When you will remember the choirs which had in those churches previously. And now it is full of birds singing sweet songs, right? So there were churches and we could hear the choirs there earlier, but now, so listen to the choirs, the churches are full of people. So that was the time of the year where the youth was there, the prime of life, the youth when he was young. And but now only the birds are there because there are no people in the church. You can only recall the memory of the church choirs. Well, so the first four lines here, you can understand the poet has taken lot of natural images. There is obviously visual imagery, especially when you go through the yellow leaves, that is yellow leaves hanging in from the branches, that is visual imagery, and even the ruined churches and the sweet birds singing, all these things are visual images. And when you think deep into this, you can say these lines have been inverted. This is not in the correct form of language. So inversion is there. Inversion is another technique. And when you go deeper into it, there is an important thing which you have to consider: the yellow leaves. That is a symbol that symbolizes the autumn, the season of the year, the autumn, and that means the old age. So the yellow leaves stand as a symbol. So we can see in these four lines, the first four lines, the poet is asking the young man to look at him and to understand that this time of the year, this age will come to you as well. So at that time, you can only recall the things which was there earlier, and it is inevitable to lose the sweetness, the beauty, and the everything, and you will be having no warm feeling. Instead, you will have coldness in life when you become old. Well, so let's go to the next four lines now. It says, In me thou seest twilight of such a day. Now it says, as after sunset fadeth in the west. In me you seest. Seest means you will see. The twilight, you know the twilight, that means the evening time. The light, the light is fading away at this time, the evening time. So when you look at me, you will see the twilight of a day. Which part of the day is that? The part of the day where the sunset is fading in the west. Fadeth means fading in the west. So the sun is going down. The sun is fading away at this time in the western sky. So when you look at me, you would say that. So that also eventually explains the old age twilight, the evening time too refers to the old age and the death is closer by. Well, then tells, which by and by black night doth take away death's second self that seals up all in rest. What does it say? So he tells, the darkness of the night is slowly taking over, gradually, by and by. The darkness is coming. Black night. Black night. The darkness is coming. Black night means darkness. So, doth take away. Do take away. So, take over here. The darkness is coming to the world. Then it says, death's second self that seals up all in rest. So, night, you may have heard that always the night time or night is taken as, now in certain poems, the night means or the sleep means death. So here the poet is also revising the idea that night is the second self, means it's like a shadow. Night time is the shadow of death because it announces that the death is closer by. Because death will one day permanently close your eyes, seals up all in rest. So, although at night when you are sleeping, your eyes are temporarily closed and you are sleeping, but one day, this night, the death will take you to a permanent close of your eyes. Your eyes will be sealed when death comes to you. It will be permanent. So that's why the poet tells that the night time is a shadow of death. Second self refer to, it's a shadow of death. And one day it will take you to a permanent rest. So permanent rest means here the death. Well, you can see another set of images here, natural images, to bring out the idea of old age and death. So you can see at first, at a glance, this twilight is a metaphor. It metaphorically suggests the old age. It is now, twilight means the evening time or the end of the day. End of the day. So it stands as a metaphor to the old age. And when we go to black night, that is again a metaphor, metaphorically symbolizes the death. Twilight is the old age and black night is the death. And you can see here the black night doth take away. So that reflects that it has been personified, even black night has been personified as the same time, and all these things are visual images. In the twilight, in the evening time, how the sun is fading away is a visual imagery, or else we can say it's a kinesthetic image as well, because the sun is moving away. Okay, so with this black color, even you are having a negative image. Black is worn, black color is worn at the funeral houses. So black is obviously the thing that reflects death. So we can see the night time and the death has been compared with each other, and the poet says that your eyes will be sealed one day and you will sleep in a coffin one day permanently. Well, and indirectly, the poet may be telling this young man to get ready for these things because every night you sleep. So, when every night you sleep, you have to have in your mind that one day you will permanently close your eyes like this. Well, okay, let's move to the last part of the poem. And here you can understand throughout these 8 lines, the poet is addressing to the young man and asking him to look at him and to think that death is closer by and the young age will fade and you will also be subjected to this death. Well, right. So the next part in the poem, in me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the death bed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave before, long. Well, now let's say in the 9th line of the poem, the sonnet, Shakespeare tells, in me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on ashes of his youth doth lie. Now the poet is telling, in me you can see the glow of a dying fire. Glow of a dying fire. Because this fire is dying. You can't think that it will last forever. So in me, you can see that this glow of the dying fire and that rests on its own ashes like a deathbed. Right? So seest, thou seest means you will see, you can see the glowing of such fire that the ashes of his youth doth lie. Doth lie. It will lie. It does lie. So this ashes of a deathbed is just like ashes is ashes like a deathbed. You can see the ashes like a deathbed where you lie, where your youth is already faded away. Now the ashes of youth are remaining, lying on a deathbed. Right. So you can see the word deathbed is here. As the deathbed whereon it must expire. So it refers to the youth. Your youth will be expired in the deathbed where the ashes are there. Now the fire is dying, the ashes are there, and the ashes are on the deathbed, and on the deathbed, your youth has been expired. Well, and it tells, consumed with that which it was nourished by. Consumed means used. So it tells that since the fire is eventually burned out upon the remaining wood, remains of the wood that once fueled it. Now when you were young, you fueled the fire. The fire. The fire is very effective here. It comes with desires, pleasures, maybe passion. So it eventually comes with, now you have consumed this fuel, you have fueled the fire when you were young. So I told you that fire means the desires, passion in the youth. So you yourself, when you were young, you consumed, you used, you fueled it. You have nourished it. Now you can perceive. Perceived means you can perceive that what you have fueled is now burned away. Now burned away, and you can see that it makes love stronger. You will see all this, and seeing it makes your love stronger. So that refers to whose love? It tells that in being in youth, you have fueled your desires, you have fueled your goals and passion. But now you have to understand that one day all this passion will be burned away. So seeing that, being in youth, you can just imagine that situation. So imagining that your love become more stronger, your love for me become more stronger, because you know that one day you will also become like me, right? So seeing all these things, perceiving all these things, you can love stronger. And the last line tells, you love, to love that, to love that well which thou must leave before. So you love me more, knowing that I will die soon. Because you know that one day this situation will appear to you as well. And when this situation comes to you, you don't have much time remaining. So, being in this young age, if you can think about this old me, you will love me more, because you will know that I will not be here for a long time. I have only few time left. So this is very important to notice how he brings out this. And again you can see fire is taken as a metaphor. As I have told you, the glowing fire is a metaphor, and that is the passion, desire, and the youth. And the youthful being is always on fire. Then there is kinesthetic imagery as well, the glowing of such fire. That's kinesthetic imagery. And fire, you can see fire is again a symbol of desire, lust, the strength, the vigor of youth. And there is also a simile here. Youth doth lie, ashes of his youth doth lie as the deathbed, ashes of his youth doth lie as the deathbed. So this suggests that the deathbed of life is the decaying of youth. The deathbed is arriving when when your youth is fading away. So ashes of youth has been compared to the deathbed. And there is also irony in the last two lines, because the poet tells that the same force which has been fueled you in youth will now let you love the old age. So it says, consumed with that which it was nourished by. Consumed with that which it was nourished by. So that tells that the life force, the lustful desires, the desires of human life has been consumed by the life of the human itself. The youth has fueled it, nourished it, and used it. Now it's getting over. So the same vigor, the same strength you nourished it will lose it, will decay it. Alright? So this is the idea, and we can understand that the poet introduces his life to a burning fire. And he tells that throughout our life, especially when we are young, we are firing our desires. We are we are adding fuel to our desires. So all the life we are burning. And finally, we are burning in fire when we are young, and finally at death also you are burning into ashes. So understand this very carefully. Ironically, he takes out this idea. And the final couplet is very important as well, because the two lines refer to love, which is something opposite to death, right? So it tells, like, it teaches the world that if you know the transitory nature of life, if you know that your life will end up soon, then you can make a positive attitude to yourself, and you will love the people at youth and people who are old at the same time. Right. So he tells that knowing that I am old and I will not be here for a long time, you can love me as well. Well, so this is the idea of the poem, and you can understand this sonnet contains of the physical well-being, how the physically the youth will be fade away, the vigor, the strength will be fade away in life, and how it is mentally affecting for a old man to cope with his life. Well, I think you have understood the poem today, and I will come up with the themes of the poem separately in another video. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day.